Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is the author of the brand new book. It's called Shakedown. It goes on sale tomorrow, and he joins us from Rome, which knows plenty about the COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you. What do you make of the president saying we can't let the cure be worse than the problem itself? At the end of the 15-day period, we'll make a decision as to which way we want to go. It sounds as if he's weighing the economic troubles that the country is going through right now with, are we overdoing it? What do you think about that?
Well, I think, first of all, this has been a mobilization period. The last guest you had are a good example. All sorts of people now coming in to make hand sanitizer where it was running out. So we will presently have more than enough hand sanitizer. The announcement by 3M of the way they are ramping up dramatically their production. And I think that you're going to see a real effort to begin to have enough material, enough resources to deal with the pandemic. But I can tell you, sitting in Rome, where, as you know, Callista is the ambassador of the Vatican, we're watching this right here. They have closed down radically because they have so many cases, more than any place except China. And so they are desperate to stop this before it kills a lot more people. I think the president did the right thing early on in cutting off travel. He's done the right thing in listening to Dr. Fauci and others for this first phase. But as we get more material, we need to move towards a much more selective approach. I mean, if you live in a county, for example, that has nobody with the virus, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to close the whole economy down for that county. If you have a truck-based society and you want to make sure that there's food in the grocery store, you've got to find a way to get truckers to travel safely. So there'll be a lot of steps, I think. The next phase will be, how do we both meet key public health standards and begin to reopen and rebuild the economy? And I think the president's sense of timing is exactly right. In fact, I tweeted this morning how really grateful I was to see him start moving towards this next phase, which will take some real planning and some real thought.
So, Newt, I want to talk about the relief package because no one knows better how to make legislation. But real quick on Italy, they're asking for the U.S. military to help the Italian people because the country is literally flat on its back. You're in Italy. Do you think the U.S. military should be put into action to help the Italian people?
Well, let me say, first of all, Callista helped Franklin Graham's Samaritan's Purse, which flew in an entire hospital, which is now operating in northern Italy, and it's full. I mean, it's opened up Saturday. Every bed's now full. So this is a very real crisis for Italians. We have a field hospital sitting in Germany that's fully capable of operating. I think they probably ought to fly it in. And I think we should also look at using some cruise liners. We have a lot of cruise liners that are going to be available for virtually no cost that could be rapidly converted, for one thing, to deal with the non-virus patients, to get them out of the hospitals, to open up the beds in the hospitals for the virus patients. But clearly, you're at a weird moment where the Cubans are in Italy, the Russians are in Italy, the Chinese are in Italy. They've been our allies now for over 70 years. Clearly, we have to find ways to help them. And as we ramp up our production, we will become sort of the medicine chest of the world, just as we were in World War II, the arsenal of democracy. So our production capacity is enormous as it starts to roll. I really appreciate the way the president has reached out to the private sector. Part of that has to go not just to Italy, but to Spain, to a variety of countries around the world that otherwise are going to suffer huge losses because their medical systems get overwhelmed.
Newt, it was frustrating over the weekend when you're watching the Senate and the House and the White House try to negotiate this deal. All weekend long, our people need help. They need relief. You have workers that are worried about losing their jobs. You have some that are furloughed. You have restaurant owners that have to pay their staff and keep their doors open for deliveries, but yet they don't have the money to pay for overhead. And for some reason, our lawmakers in Washington can't get together on a bipartisan deal. Nancy Pelosi says the House wants their own deal. And then Mitch McConnell said everything was fine, bipartisan. We were in agreement until Nancy Pelosi came back. Listen to this.
Madam Speaker, you say you're so far apart. Should people be concerned this won't pass by Monday?
We're still talking, well, I don't know Monday, but we're still talking. It's on the Senate side now because that's their deadline for a vote, but we'll be introducing our own bill, and hopefully it'll be compatible with what they've discussed in the Senate.
We had a high level of bipartisanship in 5 different working groups, and then all of a sudden, the Democratic leader and the Speaker of the House shows up. And I want everybody to fully understand, if we aren't able to act tomorrow, it'll be because of our colleagues on the other side.
Newt, what's your response?
Well, look, this is classic. In 1990, the Democrats blackmailed President George H.W. Bush into breaking his word on taxes, where they said they wouldn't agree to a budget agreement. In 2007 and 8, when Pelosi was first speaker, she basically passed terrible legislation, which President George W. Bush felt he had to sign, things which crippled the economy. They continued that for the first 2 years of Obama, and by 2010, we won the House with John Boehner and the slogan, "Where are the jobs?" So what you have now is a power struggle where Pelosi and Schumer believe they can blackmail the president into accepting really dumb ideas. Again, I think there's some things you negotiate, there's some things you can work out. But I personally do not want to see a Trump, McConnell, McCarthy team that are blackmailed by Pelosi and Schumer and give in. I think the American people need to understand we can get something done immediately this week. The House has to come back to do it. But they ought to put a lot of pressure on Pelosi and Schumer to put America ahead of partisanship and to try to help solve an American crisis, not just pay off their allies and their interest groups. And I think that this is, I'm not at all surprised. I thought McConnell did a great job. He had these 5 working groups. Individual senators in the Democratic Party are very reasonable when you get them in those kind of working groups. But their leaders understand this is their moment to blackmail the president, and if they can get away with it, they will.
It does sound as if there's going to have a revote at 9:45 shortly after the markets open. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're going to talk to Kevin McCarthy from Congress here in about 15 minutes. Newt, thank you very much. He's got a brand new book out tomorrow. It's called Shakedown. Thank you, sir.